When you see women main eventing WrestleMania today, it feels amazing. It feels like this is how it has always been. But I'm here to tell you that it wasn't always this way. The journey for women in WWE has been a long and difficult fight. It was a marathon, not a sprint, filled with incredible highs and some really tough lows. Every single woman who has ever stepped into a WWE ring played a part in getting us to where we are now. We stand on the shoulders of giants, the women who came before us and refused to be ignored. They dreamed of a day when women's wrestling would be respected, and now we are living that dream. This story isn't just about wrestling matches, it is a story about empowerment, about breaking down barriers, and about changing perceptions. It's about proving that women can be just as tough, just as athletic, and just as captivating as the men. For decades, women's wrestling was often seen as a sideshow, a special attraction to fill time. We were given only a few minutes in the ring, if we were lucky. But deep down, we always knew we were capable of so much more. We just needed the world, and WWE, to see it too. This is the story of how we went from being a sideshow to the main event spotlight. Think of it like building a huge, beautiful skyscraper. You don't just start with the fancy penthouse on top, you have to lay a strong foundation, deep in the ground. That foundation was built by the earliest pioneers, women who wrestled in a time when it was not considered proper for them to do so. Then, each generation added another floor, another layer of strength and beauty. My generation, the Divas, we added our own floor with our unique style and determination. And now the current generation is building the penthouse, reaching heights we once only dreamed of. Every single part of that building is important, so I want you to join me on this journey through time. We will look back at the very beginning, at the women who were true trailblazers. We will talk about the difficult times when it felt like we were taking steps backward. We'll celebrate the moments that gave us hope and the superstars who carried the torch. And we will explore the incredible revolution that changed everything forever. This is the history of the WWE Women's Division, a story of fearless women who fought for their place in the spotlight and proved to everyone that we belong. It's a story of passion, persistence, and pure power. Long before there was a WWE as we know it today, there were women who were true warriors of the wrestling world. One of the most important was Mildred Burke. She was a true athlete and a legitimate champion back in the 1930s and 1940s. She was strong, skilled, and proved that women could be serious competitors in the ring. Mildred Burke was a pioneer who showed everyone that women's wrestling wasn't just a novelty act. She held championships and drew crowds all on her own, setting a standard for what a female wrestler could be. She was the original blueprint for a dominant woman in a male-dominated sport. Then came the fabulous Moolah. She is a name that everyone in WWE history knows. Moolah was a tough and clever competitor who held the women's championship for an incredibly long time. She made her debut in the 1950s and basically controlled women's wrestling for decades. She was a powerful figure both inside and outside the ring. Moolah trained many other female wrestlers and made sure that women had a place on wrestling cards around the country. She was a force of nature and made sure that the world of wrestling could not ignore its women. During these early days, women's matches were treated very differently than they are today. They were often called special attractions. This meant they weren't a regular part of every show. A women's match was something you might see once in a while, a break from the men's action. They were often placed in the middle of the card to give the audience something different. While these women were talented, they were not seen as main eventers. They had to fight for every minute of ring time and every bit of respect they received from promoters and fans alike. Despite these challenges, women like Moolah, Mae Young, and many others kept the spirit of women's wrestling alive. They traveled the roads, took bumps, and performed with passion, all for the love of the sport. They laid the groundwork for everything that would come later. Without their strength and their refusal to give up, there would be no Sasha Banks, no Becky Lynch, no Rhea Ripley. These original queens of the ring didn't just wrestle. They built the very foundation that the entire WWE Women's Division stands on today. They were the true originals. The 1980s brought a huge change to WWE with the Rock and Wrestling connection. This was a time when WWE, then known as the WWF, exploded into mainstream pop culture. Music stars like Cyndi Lauper got involved, and suddenly wrestling was on MTV. This new spotlight was a huge opportunity for everyone, including the women. Cyndi Lauper became the manager for a vibrant and exciting new wrestler named Wendy Richter. Their partnership brought a fresh energy to the women's division and put it in front of a whole new audience that had never watched wrestling before. It was a magical time. The main story was Wendy Richter's rivalry with the long-reigning champion, the fabulous Moolah. Moolah represented the old guard, the established tradition of wrestling. Wendy, with her rock and roll style and energetic personality, represented the new generation. Their feud culminated at a huge event called The Brawl to End It All, which was broadcast live on MTV. Wendy Richter defeated Moolah to become the new women's champion. It felt like a changing of the guard, a moment where the women's division was finally stepping into the modern era alongside the men. This victory was a massive deal. For the first time, a women's match was the main event of a major nationally televised broadcast. It showed that women could draw ratings and create compelling stories that fans cared about. Wendy Richter became a star, and it seemed like the women's division was on the verge of something truly special. The championship was being defended on major shows, and new female wrestlers were being introduced. It was a time of great optimism, a sign that women were finally being seen as an important part of the show, not just a special attraction. However, this golden era was unfortunately short-lived. Wendy Richter's time on top ended controversially in a match that became known as the original Screwjob, where she lost the title unexpectedly. After that, the momentum of the women's division started to fade. While the rock and wrestling era had given the women a taste of the spotlight and showed what was possible, the focus soon shifted away again. The division didn't disappear completely, but it lost that mainstream buzz. It was a powerful glimmer of what could be, but the real, lasting change was still many years away. The early 1990s were a quiet time for the women's division. The championship was deactivated for a few years and there were very few women on the roster. But then, in 1993, WWE decided to bring it back in a big way. They signed a very talented and athletic wrestler named Alundra Blaze, also known as Medusa. She was not like the wrestlers of the past. She was a modern athlete with incredible in-ring skills. She performed high-flying moves and had intense physical matches that were on par with what the men were doing. Alundra Blaze was brought in to be the cornerstone of a new, more serious women's division. For a couple of years, Alundra Blaze carried the division on her back. She had great matches against competitors like Bull Nakano and Bertha Faye. These matches were often some of the best on the entire show, showcasing real athleticism and storytelling. Blaze proved that women could have technically sound and exciting matches that the fans would respect. She was a true champion who made the women's title feel important again. It felt like WWE was finally committing to a division built on pure wrestling talent, and Alundra Blaze was the perfect person to lead that charge. But then, things took a dramatic turn. In 1995, due to financial reasons and a shift in creative direction, WWE decided to release Alundra Blaze and once again eliminate the women's division. In a now infamous moment, she appeared on the competing WCW's television show and threw the WWE Women's Championship belt into a trash can. This was a shocking moment that signaled the end of that era. For a while it seemed like serious women's wrestling in WWE was over for good. The division that Blaze had worked so hard to build was gone in an instant. It wasn't long, however, before women returned to WWE, but in a very different way. The Attitude Era began, and it was a time of edgier, more controversial television. Women like Sable and Sunny became huge stars, but they were often presented more for their looks and sex appeal than their wrestling ability. While they were incredibly popular, the focus shifted away from in-ring competition. There were still talented wrestlers like Jacqueline and Ivory, but they often had to compete in gimmick matches like bra and panties matches. It was a complicated time. Women were back on TV, but the respect for their athleticism had taken a big step backward. As the Attitude Era faded, the early 2000s gave rise to what we now call the Diva Era. This was the era that I came up in, along with my sister Brie. It was a time defined by a mix of very talented wrestlers and beautiful women who were hired from modeling and fitness backgrounds. You had amazing lifelong wrestlers like Trish Stratus, Lita, Mickie James, and Beth Phoenix. They had incredible matches and proved they were top-tier athletes. At the same time, WWE started the Diva Search, a contest to find new female talent, which often prioritized looks and personality over wrestling experience. This created a very unique dynamic in the locker room. You had women who had trained for years to be wrestlers working alongside women who were learning on the job. It was a time of great opportunity but also great challenges. We were all branded as divas, a label that covered everyone from the champion to the ring announcer. The brand was very focused on glamour, photo shoots, and reality TV shows like Total Divas. While this brought a lot of new eyes to the women, it sometimes overshadowed the incredible athletic work being done in the ring. One of the biggest frustrations during the Diva era was the length of our matches. More often than not, the women were given only a few minutes on Raw or SmackDown. Sometimes our matches would be cut for time, lasting less than 2 minutes. It was incredibly difficult to tell a story or show what you could do in such a short window. We would train so hard and have so many ideas, but we rarely got the chance to show our full potential on the big stage. We were often placed in tag team matches that felt rushed or in gimmick matches that didn't allow for serious wrestling. In 2008, WWE introduced the Divas Championship. It was a new title, represented by a pink and silver butterfly belt. This belt became the ultimate goal for all of us. While the title was meant to unify the women's division, it also reinforced the diva branding that many fans and wrestlers were starting to grow tired of. The diva era was a mixed bag. It gave women like me a platform and made us household names, but it also came with limitations that held back the true athletic potential of the division. We were fighting for more, but the system wasn't quite ready for it yet. For years, the frustration had been building. It wasn't just among us, the wrestlers in the locker room. The fans were starting to feel it too. They saw the incredible, long and exciting matches the women were having in other promotions or even on WWE's own developmental show, NXT. They knew what we were capable of. They saw women like Paige, Emma, Sasha Banks, and Charlotte Flair putting on clinics in NXT, and then they would watch Raw and see the main roster women get only a couple of minutes. The audience was smart, and they knew we deserved better than what we were being given. The breaking point finally came on February 23, 2015. On an episode of Monday Night Raw, a tag team match featuring the Bella Twins against Paige and Emma lasted for only about 30 seconds. The bell rang, there were a few moves, and it was over. The crowd was audibly disappointed. That night, the frustration boiled over online. A hashtag started trending worldwide on Twitter, #GiveDivasAChance. It wasn't just a popular hashtag for a few hours, it stayed at the top of the trends for 3 days. It was a powerful message sent directly to the top of WWE. This was not a small vocal minority. This was a massive, global movement from the WWE universe. They were tired of seeing talented women wasted in short, meaningless matches. They were demanding change. They wanted to see real characters, real storylines, and real wrestling from the women's division. The hashtag was a wake-up call for WWE. It was impossible to ignore. Even our boss, Vince McMahon, tweeted in response, acknowledging the movement and promising the change was coming. For the first time, it felt like our voices and the voices of the fans were truly being heard. This moment was the spark that lit the fire of a revolution. It was a turning point in the history of women's wrestling in WWE. The fans didn't just ask for change, they demanded it, and they used their collective voice to make it happen. It showed that the audience was ready and eager to support women's wrestling as a serious, athletic part of the show. #GiveDivasAChance wasn't just a complaint, it was a declaration of support. It told WWE, we want more, and we will be here to watch it if you give it to us. The pressure was on and a new era was about to begin. Responding to the powerful #GiveDivasAChance movement, WWE knew it had to make a significant change. The change came in the summer of 2015. Stephanie McMahon came out on Monday Night Raw and declared the start of a women's revolution. This wasn't just a new slogan, it was a promise of real action. To kick things off, she introduced 3 of the most talented wrestlers from NXT to the main roster at the same time: Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, and Sasha Banks. They joined the main roster and immediately changed the entire landscape of the division. The energy was electric. These 3 women, along with Bayley, who was still in NXT, were known as the 4 Horsewomen of WWE. They had been having groundbreaking matches in NXT, including main eventing shows and competing in Iron Man matches. They brought that same intensity and skill to the main roster. Suddenly, the women's matches on Raw and SmackDown were getting more time. The storylines became more serious and focused on competition and championships, not just personal drama. The in-ring product improved overnight because these women were incredible athletes who pushed everyone to be better. One of the most important changes came at WrestleMania 32 in 2016. WWE Hall of Famer Lita came out to the ring and unveiled a brand new championship. She announced that the company was officially retiring the Diva label and the Divas Championship. From that moment on, the female performers would be known as WWE Superstars, the same as the men. The new title was the WWE Women's Championship, with a design that mirrored the men's WWE World Heavyweight Championship. This was a huge symbolic step. It signaled that the women were no longer a separate, lesser category. They were equals. That night at WrestleMania, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, and Sasha Banks competed in a triple threat match for the new title. It was one of the best matches on the entire card. They were given time, a great story, and they absolutely stole the show. This match set the new standard for what a women's match at WrestleMania could be. The women's revolution was no longer just a promise, it was a reality. The talent had always been there, but now it was finally being given the platform and the respect it deserved on the grandest stage of them all. Once the women's revolution was in full swing, the barriers started to fall one by one. The women of WWE weren't just having longer matches, they were doing things that had once been considered impossible for female superstars. They were stepping into match types that had always been reserved for men, proving they were just as tough and could handle the most dangerous environments in WWE. This era became known for its incredible firsts, as women shattered one glass ceiling after another and made history time and time again. The momentum was unstoppable and the list of accomplishments grew rapidly. One of the biggest moments came in 2016 when Sasha Banks and Charlotte Flair became the first women to ever main event a WWE pay-per-view. Not only that, but they did it inside the most brutal structure in WWE Hell in a Cell. This was a massive statement. The Hell in a Cell match is known for its danger and intensity, and putting two women in that spot for the main event showed a huge level of trust and respect from the company. They delivered an incredible physical match that proved women belonged in any match type imaginable. The list of firsts continued to grow. We saw the first ever Women's Royal Rumble match in 2018, an event that was a huge success and became an annual tradition. We saw the first ever all-women's pay-per-view called Evolution, which celebrated the past, present, and future of women's wrestling. There were also the first women's Money in the Bank ladder matches and the first Elimination Chamber matches. Each one of these events was another step forward, another barrier broken down, proving that the women could draw in viewers and deliver incredible performances in high-stakes situations. The ultimate achievement came at WrestleMania 35 in 2019. For the first time in the event's long history, a women's match was the main event. The Man Becky Lynch, Rowdy Ronda Rousey, and the Queen Charlotte Flair competed in a triple threat match for both the Raw and SmackDown Women's Championships. Closing out the biggest show of the year was a dream that once seemed impossible. It was the culmination of the entire revolution. It was the definitive proof that women were no longer a sideshow attraction. They were the main event. It was a historic night for WWE and for women's sports everywhere. Today, when you watch WWE, the women's division is in a place that the pioneers could have only dreamed of. Women are no longer fighting for a few minutes of television time. They are consistently featured in prominent storylines and long, competitive matches on Raw, SmackDown, and premium live events. Superstars like Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, and Io Sky are presented as top-tier athletes and major stars for the company. Their matches are often considered the best on the show, filled with incredible athleticism, drama, and storytelling. The respect they receive from the fans and the company is equal to their male counterparts. A huge part of this continued success is NXT. What started as a developmental show has become a powerhouse brand that consistently produces the next generation of female superstars. NXT has a reputation for presenting some of the best women's wrestling in the world. It provides a platform for young talent to hone their skills, develop their characters, and have amazing matches before they even get to the main roster. This ensures a constant flow of well-trained, ready-made stars, guaranteeing that the future of the women's division will remain bright and competitive for years to come. The change is visible in every aspect of the show. Women now have their own tag team championships, allowing for more stories and more talent to be featured. They compete in every type of gimmick match, from ladder matches to war games. Most importantly, it is no longer a surprise to see a women's match main eventing a weekly show or a premium live event. It has become normal. This normalization is perhaps the biggest victory of all. The goal was never just to have one or two historic firsts, it was to make women in the main event a regular and expected occurrence. The journey from Sideshow to Spotlight has been long and filled with struggle, but the progress is undeniable. It was a fight waged by every woman who ever stepped through the ropes, from Mildred Burke to the fabulous Moolah, from Alundra Blaze to the divas of my era, and to the revolutionaries who changed the game forever. We didn't just ask for a chance, we took it. We broke down doors, we shattered ceilings, and we built a division worthy of the main event. Today, the women of WWE are not just part of the show, they are often the stars of the show, shining in a spotlight they well and truly earned.